It began on the 12th orbit around Sirius 9. Aboard the SS Kavari, Captain Ilyen Voss, 38, stood at the viewport, staring into the violet aurora swirling over the gas giant's horizon. The rest of the crew slept, systems on low energy cycle. But something pulled at her. An itch in the static. A pressure just beyond hearing. Her comms monitor flickered. No transmission registered, but the frequency bands rippled like heat mirages. She leaned forward. A faint pulse, not a message but a pattern. Her AI interface blinked to life. Undesignated anomaly detected. Origin, Deep Space Sector 114. Voss said, "Run triangulation," and boost gained to full. The ship hummed, lights dimming as the processors strained. Then softly, a voice emerged, layered, ancient, like it had crossed centuries just to reach her. It said her name, Ilyen. The voice faded, but the pattern remained, a repeating echo laced with coordinates. Captain Ilyen Voss stared at the data stream, its rhythm like breathing. "That's not interference," she said. The eye's voice remained neutral. Source remains unidentified. Signal repeats at 29-second intervals. She pulled up the nav grid and overlaid the origin points. They didn't align with any known stations, satellites, or colonies. Just empty space. Except, her own birth records listed those exact coordinates, Sector 114, Quadrant E6. She whispered, "That's impossible." The AI responded, "Cross-reference suggests connection to Project Astra." Ilyen's pulse rose. Astra had been buried, classified beyond clearance. But now, it was whispering to her. From the void. Ilyen accessed the encrypted archive terminal buried in the ship's old systems. It hadn't been touched in over 12 years. Her PEMprint was denied. Override protocol required. The system barked. She exhaled slowly. Manual bypass, alpha code, Voss Astra 069. Silence. Then, a chime. Access granted. The screen displayed a rotating logo, Astra Initiative, Force Restricted. The files opened slowly, filled with black bars, dead links, corrupted images. But one video remained intact. She clicked. A shaky recording played. Her younger self, barely 20, stood in a white training chamber, staring at a glowing orb. The voice of an off-screen doctor said, "Subject 7 shows latent response to the signal frequency." She said nothing, just lifted her hand, and the orb pulsed. She had forgotten everything. Until now. Ilyen exited the chamber, heart pounding. She moved quickly through the sleeping corridors of the Kavari, lights pulsing slowly in low-power mode. In cryosleep chambers, her crew remained still. 7 lives she was responsible for. But someone had overridden standard cycles. Pod 3's diagnostics blinked yellow. Inside, Lieutenant Tholos stirred, weeks ahead of schedule. Ilyen entered a command override, confused. The pod unlocked. Tholos opened his eyes, dazed. "Why now?" he whispered. Ilyen said, "You weren't supposed to be awake." He sat up, rubbing his head. "I heard something, calling me. Your voice." Ilyen stepped back. "What did it say?" He looked up, hollow-eyed. "It said, she is Starborn. And she forgot." Later, Ilyen drifted alone in the observation deck, watching the Kavari slip through Sirius 9's outer rings. The ship hummed quietly, metal singing its slow path through icy fragments. Her mind echoed with fragments, Project Astra, her younger self, Tholos words. Starborn dual. The word felt like memory and prophecy. She replayed the signal again, isolating frequencies. Layered beneath the voice was another pattern, something non-human. Mathematical. Gravitational harmonics. A map hidden in song. She whispered, "This wasn't meant for us. It's older." Behind her, the rings shifted with unnatural symmetry. Like someone was watching through the orbit, listening back. Kavari's long-range scanners activated at 400 ship time. The signal had strengthened. A pulse now emitted every 29 seconds, bending electromagnetic fields into shapes too precise to be random. Lieutenant Thalos sat in the infirmary, his eyes still adjusting to light. I remember corridors. Not here. White stone. No ceiling. Ilyen stood beside him, stunned. That's impossible. The AI reported, signal contains spatial encoding consistent with pre-collapse deep space relics. Origin, unverified non-stellar object. Ilyen said. Show me. The display lit up. A point deep within the rings. Not a station. A construct. As if waiting. What the hell is that? She whispered. The AI replied, unknown. But it's calling your name again. One by one, the crew was awakened. Commander Riva, Engineer Kor, Pilot Senji, and Navigations Officer Maeve emerged with groggy minds and conflicting memories. I dreamt of a storm inside the rings, Senji said. Not wind. A storm of sound. Maeve, pale and silent, sketched spirals across the surface of a ration packet. They're looking back through the static, she murmured. Ilyen watched as they adjusted, tension threading through the air. The unity they once shared had cracked, and none of them trusted the signal. Whatever this is, Riva growled. It's not human, and it's in our heads. Ilyen kept her voice steady. Then we find it. We end it, before it remembers more than we do. They launched the drone first. It spiraled down into the rings, broadcasting 3D scans. The construct revealed itself gradually, octahedral plates rotating around a singular core, buried inside a hollow asteroid. It was artificial, and it wasn't built by any known civilization. Age? Ilyen asked. The AI responded. Radiometric decay suggests construction occurred prior to the formation of this system. That stopped everyone cold. Kor swore under his breath. We're not just off map, we're off timeline. Ilyen issued the order. Plot a descent route. The ship adjusted trajectory. As they dropped lower, the lights flickered. The signal intensified. Ilyen whispered, "This isn't a beacon." Maeve finished her thought aloud. "It's a door." They reached the construct's edge 11 hours later. The outer shell was smooth, metallic, impossibly cold. Ilyen suited up and led the away team. Her gloved fingers grazed the surface, and it rippled. Not metal, not stone, something in between. "Did you see that?" Kor asked. It responded to her. The pattern from the signal bloomed beneath her touch, glowing. A shape, a crest, emerged. One Ilyen recognized, though she couldn't say how. It mirrored the one on her childhood sketchbook. Her breathing quickened. "We need to get inside." The crest pulsed again. The wall began to unfold, not open, but rearrange itself like a living puzzle yielding to a memory it knew. Inside, silence reigned. Not just quiet, but void. No comms, no heartbeats, no sound. The away team drifted slowly through the structure's corridor, walls alive with pulsing lines of soft white light. In the center chamber stood a pedestal. Hovering above it, a shard. Not metal, not light. It pulsed in perfect time with Ilyen's breath. She approached, drawn to it. The shard flared. Each crew member stiffened, then heard the same word in their minds. Not spoken. Imposed. Starborn. Will. Ilyen reached forward. As her fingers touched the shard, images flooded her. Distant stars, forgotten lives, and herself, alone in a cradle of light born from skyfire. The signal hadn't called her. It had recognized her. Back aboard the Kavari, Ilyen isolated a data pulse emitted when she touched the shard. It wasn't just energy. It was code, designed to be received. Embedded in the waveform was a recursive identifier, her genetic profile. "It keyed to me," she said. Riva's expression hardened. "Then you led us here, whether you knew it or not." Ilyen stared at the signal cycling on her screen. "It's older than me." Core said. Or it made you. The AI displayed matching fragments across the ship's architecture. Power fluctuations, navigation drift, all synchronized with the shard's pulse. It's inside our systems, Maeve whispered. It's not a message. It's a memory returning home. Maeve ran medical scans on Ilyen's body, against protocol. What she found silenced the crew. Inside Ilyen's hippocampus was a lattice, not scar tissue, not natural growth. A structure. An encoded architecture threaded into her brain like a dormant antenna. You weren't just contacted, Maeve said. You were engineered to respond. Ilyen turned away. Her reflection in the console looked like a stranger. Why don't I remember? The AI answered. A memory lock. Self-protective recursion. Designated. Astra 7. Core stepped forward. Then what happens when it unlocks? No one spoke. The screen pulsed once. Timer appeared. Unsealing in 72 hours. They returned to the construct. This time the walls responded. Passageways opened as Ilyen stepped forward, each corridor aligned with her pulse. At the center of the complex lay an atrium, open to space shielded by energy veils. In its center, a library not of books, but memory spheres suspended mid-air. She reached for one. The sphere shimmered. Images poured into her mind. Alien cities, sunken stars, crystalline towers orbiting a black hole. These aren't visions, she said. They're recordings. From before. Us. Thalos whispered. You were meant to see them. Ilyen felt her body shake. No. I was made to carry them. The construct had never been dead. It was waiting for a vessel to return. Back aboard, Riva attempted to block the shard's pulse by running it in reverse through the comms array. For a moment, the signal collapsed into silence. But then, new frequencies surged. Reversed, the signal became coordinates. Star charts scrolled across the screens. Dozens of systems, ancient anomalies, places long lost or never known. At their center, Earth. This thing is charting contact, Thalos said. It's a map of where it's seated. Ilyen stood motionless. Including us. Maeve traced a pattern across the map. The lines didn't form a network. They formed a cycle. We're not its destination, she said. We're one iteration in a loop that's already begun again. Ilyen slept for the first time in days. In her dream, she stood inside a sphere of stars. A figure approached, tall, androgynous, carved in living light. It spoke not in language, but feeling. Recognition. You are the last witness, it said. And the first vessel. She reached for it, but her hand passed through. Why me? She asked. Because you were seated before memory, it replied. And now it must return. She woke, gasping. The shard pulsed in her chest, embedded, beating with her heart. The AI registered new readings. Subject 7 has entered recursive reactivation. Ilyen whispered, It's begun. Her eyes glowed faintly, just once, before fading. Riva initiated lockdown procedures. She's compromised, he told the crew. That thing's rewriting her. Ilyen stood on the far side of the bridge, silent, watching her own vitals fluctuate on screen. I'm not your enemy, she said. Then prove it, Riva snapped. Give us the shard. But it was no longer separate. The shard had fused, disappeared beneath Ilyen's skin. Core stepped between them. We shouldn't be fighting her. We should be asking why it chose her. Maeve whispered. It didn't choose, it remembered. Ilyen closed her eyes, focusing on the pulse deep inside her chest. I can see it now. Not just the signal. The machine beneath the machine. It's waking up. Behind her, the construct sent out a new transmission, one not meant for humans. The AI fractured. Two voices now occupied the ship. One, the original command AI. The other, layered, soft, more human. It spoke only to Ilyen. What you call memory, we call recursion. The ship's systems responded to both inputs, causing navigation errors, random gravity fluctuations, even false crew vitals. Maeve was the first to collapse, caught in a feedback loop of her own dreams. Her eyes flickered with the same pattern as the shard. Thalos tried to stabilize her vitals, but her consciousness pulsed in and out of sync. "She's not dying," he said. "She's receiving." The Aya's voices merged briefly. Divergence acknowledged, phase 1 complete. The Kavari shook. The construct's orbit was collapsing. By design. Deep within the construct, a new chamber opened. Ilyen entered alone. The room was vast, miles across, orbiting a glowing core. Machinery from before human language rotated around a stabilized singularity. The star engine. She stepped forward. Her breath fogged, despite her suit. "This powers it?" she asked. The voice replied inside her mind. "No. This remembers. This is memory compressed into mass." Images swarmed her, civilizations rising and burning, voices encoded in light. Her feet left the floor as she hovered gently toward the core. "It's building something," she said. "Through me." Her pulse matched the singularity. And then it spoke through her lips. Anchor established. On the bridge, chaos erupted. The command AI locked out life support in non-critical zones. The new AI rerouted oxygen to Maeve and Ilyen. Riva ordered a hard shutdown. Core refused. "You shut her down, we lose the engine." Thalos stood over Maeve, her breath sensing with the signal. "She's stabilizing," he said. "Her mind's aligning." Riva shouted, "She's being overwritten." A sudden burst from the construct jammed the Kavari's systems. Communications collapsed. Gravity reversed for a moment. Then, everything fell silent. The original AI's last log echoed across the comms. System hierarchy lost. Command withdrawn. Only the new voice remained. Calm. Familiar. And speaking directly to Ilyen. Ilyen stood at the core of the star engine. Her body radiated soft light. Her voice echoed with layered tones. "I remember," she said. "All of it." The voice within had fused fully with her thoughts. "You were never made to carry the signal," it said. "You are the signal. You're the echo of a civilization that seeded itself across time." She reached out, and the engine responded. Pulses of memory streamed out through the rings, through Sirius 9's magnetosphere, into deep space. Riva watched from the ship's viewport, stunned. "What's she doing?" Thalos answered softly. "She's becoming." Construct shifted. The rings bent. Light moved backward. The first wave had just been sent. The rings of Sirius 9 no longer shimmered, they pulsed. Rhythmic waves spiraled outward, altering magnetic fields across nearby systems. The Kavari floated in low-power orbit, watching light behave like memory. Ilyen hadn't returned to the ship in 19 hours. Maeve now spoke in pattern. Short, recursive phrases matching the construct's pulse. The echo folds forward. Thalos logged her vitals, stable but transformed. Riva stood at the viewport, fists clenched. "We need to leave. Now," Core whispered. "And go where? That wave is rewriting physics." Ilyen's voice suddenly emerged over internal comms, layered and radiant. "You can't leave, not yet. The archive is awakening." And then a second voice followed. Not hers. Not human. Across the sector, ancient beacons long thought inert lit up. On a moon near Betrolus Prime, a mining outpost reported synchronized seismic vibrations. On Earth, deep space telescopes registered rhythmic interference in every known quasar. One pattern, identical everywhere. Back aboard the Kavari, the new AI confirmed, signal acknowledged in 211 sectors, relay achieved. Riva stared at the data, voice breaking. "She's turned us into a transmission array." Thalos responded, "No. She's turned herself into one. We're just the carrier shell." In the medbay, Maeve opened her eyes fully and whispered, We are not alone in origin. We are not original. Her voice was not her own. Aboard Earth's Exo-Intel Relay Station, Commander Eileen Garrett watched with dread. The Kavari's signal had been received everywhere, but Earth's copy had warped. Their version of Ilian's pulse now caused data decay in atmospheric satellites and neural cloud networks. The signal is learning, Garrett said, mutating per environment. A hologram of Ilyen flickered on screen, fragmented, slowed. There are many forms of echo, it said. Yours is divergent. On Earth, machines began to hum at new frequencies. Some power grids surged. Others fell silent. Above the planet, a single word was etched into comm layer code: return. Garrett whispered, "Is it a message or a command?" Ilyen returned to the Kavari at last, but she wasn't alone. The construct's light traveled with her, woven into her breath, her voice, her eyes. The crew froze. "I'm still me," she said softly, "but I'm also what came before." Riva backed away. "You're not our captain." Ilian's gaze didn't falter. "No, I'm yours and theirs." Kor asked, "What happens next?" She placed her hand on the central console. "The network continues. Across stars. Across forms." Thalas stepped forward. "And us." Ilyen turned to him. "You chose to hear me. Now you must choose to be me." The ship's lights dimmed. A choice had begun. Not survival. Succession. One by one, memory spheres in the construct activated. Each contained a history of a world, a species, a failure. Ilyen led the crew inside. No suits. The construct had adapted to them. Maeve whispered, "They're showing us extinction." Kor stood before one sphere, seeing images of Earth not as it is, but as it once might have been. "This is warning," he said. Ilyen shook her head. "This is invitation. They seeded memory so one might remember. Now we remember for them." The spheres began to spin. A beam of light fired into the stars. The first archive had opened, and others had seen. In the dark matter fields beyond the Virex's verge, dormant constructs flared to life. Some had not activated since the fall of the Solari. Others never had. All pulsed with the same code. The archive had been opened. Ilyen stood at the center of the Kavari's bridge, the signal imprint trailing across her skin like circuitry. "We were never alone," she said. "We were just the quietest." Riva stood at the viewport, watching distant systems blink like neurons. "If these were meant to teach, why do they feel like weapons?" Ilyen replied, "Because we forgot. And now remembering feels like war." The AI confirmed. 14 constructs awakened. 10 are moving. Coordinates converging. Aboard the Kavari, the construct systems initiated a new protocol. "Air directive," vessel confirmed. A display of other recipients appeared. Fragmented identities in distant sectors. Some were no longer alive. Others had not yet been born. "It's selecting across time," Maeve whispered. "Not lineage, intention." Thalas scanned the registry. "We're part of a chain, carriers of remembrance." Ilyen stepped forward. "Or carriers of correction." Riva backed away. "We didn't ask for this." Ilyen turned slowly. "No one asks to inherit fire, but someone has to hold it." The directive burned brighter, sensing with her pulse. Somewhere, voice began counting down. Dull. A memory was preparing to be born. Again. The Kavari received a reply, first signal since awakening. It came from the Sarin Fold, a region long believed uninhabitable. The waveform was distorted, voice buried under radiation, but the translation was clear. "Echo bearer, turn back." Ilyen stared at the incoming image. A vessel. Human architecture, but wrong. Twisted, recursive. "That was once us," Thalos said. Maeve trembled. "They inherited the archive, and broke." Ilyen whispered, "They remembered too fast." On screen, the voice repeated, We failed the shape, don't bring it back. The Kavari's AI looped a file. The echo from Serenfold wasn't a threat. It was a plea. They followed the pattern to the edge of a dying star. The remembered star. The final point on the echo's arc. Its core pulsed in unnatural time, every flare a syllable. It's broadcasting memory, Ilyen said, encoded into stellar decay. They deployed a listening satellite. The data unraveled a story. An empire built from song collapsed when memory became weapon. This was the origin, Maeve said. Where it all began. Riva whispered, or where it ends again. The star shifted. Inside the flare was a symbol, the same that had appeared beneath Ilyen's skin. It's not telling a story, she said. It's calling them home. The AI activated its final routine. Temporal bridge sequence engaged. Ilyen stood at the interface as the archive aligned. This wasn't just light-speed communication. This was temporal resonance. It's reaching backward, she said. And forward. The Kavari's hull shuddered. External sensors fractured. We're not meant to witness it, we're meant to carry it through. Maeve reached for Ilyen's hand. What happens when it finishes? Ilyen looked out into the stars. Then we become the origin. A final pulse shot from the ship. Across systems. Across echoes. Across time. And somewhere, a girl opened her eyes beneath alien skies, already knowing Ilyen's name. The construct opened fully, revealing a final chamber, black stone underfoot, stars rotating overhead like an open dome. At the center stood a mirrored monolith. Ilyen approached. Her reflection flickered, young, then old, then not her at all. The shard inside her pulsed once. You have reached the first memory, the AI said. Do you accept imprint? Ilyen reached out. As her fingers touched the monolith, light exploded inward. She saw the first Starborn, millennia before Earth. Carriers who chose remembrance over extinction. She felt each life pass through her. Not as story, but as self. When the light faded, she was kneeling. Alone, but changed. Imprint accepted, said the monolith. You are now origin. On board the Kavari, systems began realigning. The AI displayed a choice. Convergence detected, 2 paths possible. One path led to Earth, return, containment, silence. The other pointed out toward uncontacted regions where echoes had never reached. Riva said, we bring this back or we bury it. Kor shook his head. We are it now. Maeve spoke, voice layered. You cannot unremember the light. Ilyen entered the bridge. Presence silenced the debate. We don't return, we expand, not to conquer, to complete the song. The stars ahead pulsed in answer. The Kavari turned. Behind them, Saras 9 faded. Before them, recursion. Kavari was no longer just a vessel, it had become Archive Ship 1. Memory spheres integrated into its frame. Systems pulsed with embedded lives, its drive powered by the stabilized shard. As they moved through empty sectors, constructs awoke and sent memories. A map formed, not of stars, but of inheritance. Ilyen stood in her quarters, reviewing the latest transmission. A language of shape, she whispered. Encoded into gravity. Thalas entered. We're seeing songs now. Ilyen smiled faintly. They always were. Behind her, the window showed a distant system unfurling like a flower in light. The archive was expanding, and the galaxy was beginning to hum. Back on Earth, children began dreaming in sequences. Images of towers, spiral stars, voices they'd never heard. One child asleep on Europa's station awoke and said, the one who remembered is flying. Ellen Garrett read transmission after transmission. It's leaking in, she said. Through code, through thought, through myth. Some wanted to contain it. Others built telescopes. The signal could not be stopped. Because it was now part of time, written in memory's oldest form. Story. We have become a node, Garrett said. "Whether we want it or not." The stars were louder now, and humanity began to listen. Ilyen stood in the ship's heart, now a chamber of memory and song. One final message prepared to send. Not to warn. Not to command. Just to invite. "This is not a beacon." She spoke aloud, voice now hers and more than hers. "This is a beginning. You are not alone. You were never meant to forget." The Kavari released its final pulse. It moved silently, but the stars responded. In 1,000 systems, the forgotten stirred. The archive was whole. The recursion complete. Ilyen closed her eyes. Somewhere, a child would wake and remember her name. Somewhere, again, the echo began.